περάσουμε στο επόμενο μας θέμα που έχει να κάνει με την διάλεξη που διοργάνωσε το Macedonian Society την περασμένη Πέμπτη 18 Φεβρουαρίου. Ο μιλητής σε αυτήν την πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα διάλεξη ήταν ο διάσημος Έλληνας Δόκτωρ Στάθης Καλύβας του Πανεπιστημίου Yale. Θέμα της διάλεξής του ήταν What is Greece? Reflection of the Historical Trajestory of a Modern Nation. Εμείς πρώτα θα παρακολουθήσουμε το καλωσόρισμα από την πρόεδρο του Macedonian Society of Great Britain, κυρία Νατάσα Σφετζούρη.
Your Excellency, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. I am Natasha Svetzouri, President of the Macedonian Society of Great Britain, and on behalf of the Executive Committee, I would like to welcome you tonight. I would like also to thank you for your support over the years and going forward. The program tonight includes introduction of the guest, Professor Stάθης Καλύβας, by Dr. Christa Labrinakou, lecturer on the University College London and member of the committee, illustrated lecture by Dr. Stάθης Καλύβας, followed by questions and answers and reception afterwards. Thank you.
Στη συνέχεια στο βήμα ανέβηκε η Δόκτωρ Χρύσα Λουμπινάκου, η οποία παρουσίασε το βιογραφικό του Δόκτωρα Στάθη Καλύβα και τον κάλεσε στο βήμα για την διάλεξή του. Ας δούμε τι είπε η κυρία Χρύσα Λουμπινάκου.
Good evening. Professor Kalivas is Professor of Political Science and Director of the Program on Order, Conflict and Violence at Yale University. He is the author of a number of books. His most recent book is the book called Modern Greece, What Everyone Needs to Know, which was published a few months ago in 2015. The other books include The Logic of Violence in Civil War, published in 2006, and The Rise of Christian Democracy in Europe, which was published in 1996. In addition, he is the co-author of the book Order, Conflict and Violence, which was published in 2008. Since 2009, he has also been the author of a bi-weekly column in the Greek daily newspaper I Καθημερινή. He has received several awards, including Woodrow Wilson Award for Best Book on Government, Politics or International Affairs, the Lubert Award for Best Book in Comparative Politics, the European Academy of Sociology Book Award in 2008, the J. David Greenstone Award for Best Book in Politics and History, and the Gregory Lubert Award for Best Article in Comparative Politics. He has received the last award 3 times, in 2001, 2009, and 2011. He's the recipient of a number of fellowships and grants, including a grant from the European University Institute, the Harry Frank Guggenheim Foundation, the United States Peace Institute, and the Falk Bernadotte Academy. He is a fellow of the American Academy of Arts and Sciences and the John Simon Guggenheim Memorial Foundation. In today's lecture, Professor Kalivas will review and discuss the various stages of the Greek crisis from its eruption in 2009 to the present. He will consider its place in the broader context of Greek history and the process of European integration, monetary and political, comparing and contrasting political and economic dynamics as well as domestic, European and international ones. His lecture will draw on the arguments of his recently published book, Modern Greece, What Everyone Needs to Know. The central theme of that book is that Greece is a trailblazer. For 2 centuries, Greece has launched ambitious projects of democratization and economic development, some of which, as we all know, were quite successful. However, what is noteworthy is the epic disasters that have characterized the Greek historical trajectory. The 2009 financial crisis is the latest one. As Professor Kalivas explains in his book, and he will explain to us here shortly, the contradiction between failure and success is due to a key recurring pattern in the course of Greek history, namely a succession of peculiar boom and bust cycles.
Στη συνέχεια στο βήμα ανέβηκε ο Δόκτωρ Στάθης Καλύβας, ο οποίος είναι καθηγητής πολιτικών επιστημών και διευθυντής του προγράμματος On Order, Ρήξη και Βία του Πανεπιστημίου Yale. Εμείς θα παρακολουθήσουμε ένα απόσπασμα από την πολύ ενδιαφέρουσα διάλεξη.
Well, thanks very much for this very nice introduction. It's a great pleasure to be here tonight and to share some of my reflections. In fact, this is a much more a broader historical overview of the trajectory of the Greek state, of the modern Greek state and the Greek nation. It draws very much on the book that was published by Oxford University Press in May 2015. I reworked and expanded the argument for the Greek edition of the book that has a different title in Greek. It's called Disasters and Triumphs, Καταστροφές και Θρίαμβοι. And I've also expanded even more and refined the argument for the new edition that should be coming out recently. So it's a work in progress, and it gives me great pleasure to share some of those reflections. Very much like a lot of people in this room, the crisis has been the trigger for trying to understand exactly what caused it, but not only what caused the most recent crisis, but how we can explain it in what the French historians would call the longue durée, the longer duration of time. And so I thought I would start by reading you a passage from a very important and interesting memoir that was published in Greece in 1948 by a British classicist and officer of the Special Operations Executive, Christopher Montague Woodhouse. And in his book, famous book called The Apple of Discord, in his introduction, he gives an overview of the state, so to speak, of the Greek state. So let me read that passage. He says, he describes the attempt by the Metaxas regime to reform the Greek state. And he says, and I'm quoting, "The task which he had set before himself and his ostensibly provisional government was to create the Greek state, to give it the stability, the cohesion, the self-respect which characterize an independent state and which, despite 100 years of freedom, Greece had not yet secured. Hitherto there had been Greek statesmen, but there had been no Greek state. There had been Harillos Trikoupis in the 19th century and Eleftherios Venizelos in the 20th century. But an examination of the lives of those statesmen reveals that behind and beneath them there was no state. So long as they were in power, there was progress in the welfare of the people and the condition of the country. But when the ordinary processes of democracy replaced them by their opponents, what they had achieved was undone. The achievement of Venizelos in particular raised the international status of Greece to one of wide respect, but the passage of time showed that although Venizelos himself was among the greatest European statesmen of his time, the state which he appeared to represent did not exist. The wide respect which was being accorded personally to Venizelos and vicariously to Greek antiquity, but not to the Greek state. His intermittent displacement from office revealed behind the facade an administrative anarchy. And he concludes, and which Metaxas set himself to cure, was that Greece could not be a state as England or France was a state in the 20th century European meaning of the term until Greece had entered 20th century Europe. This is a very typical passage that one finds throughout the Greek history, from the very beginning of the independence and even just before, during the years of the War of Independence, up to the recent years of the crisis. As we're going to see, a lot of people who come to Greece describe the situation in which the Greek state is not functioning, there is corruption, and the politicians do not operate as they should. It is a passage that, in its points, sounds so natural and so self-evident as to not need any particular support. It sounds true to our ears, but I'm going to argue, even though it's correct in its characterization, it can be also quite misleading. And it leads us in a direction of understanding the trajectory of the modern Greek state that can be quite problematic, and I wish to question, to challenge, and to revise tonight. So this is the widespread perception, a very interesting book that contains a lot of similar descriptions. You can almost lift those descriptions from the past. Is a very small volume by Michael Lewis called Boomerang, where he visits, he's a famous American journalist, he visits various countries undergoing crisis in Europe and describes their characteristics. And of course, the emphasis in Greece is on some of the themes that have permeated public understanding of Greece, especially corruption, tax evasion, etc. But there is also scholarly work in that respect. There is a recent paper by two economists, Reinhardt and Trobesch, in which they find that you can actually model the course of Greek economic history as a set of cycles of extreme borrowing and of default, followed by bailout. In fact, Greece has spent, as we're going to see, a very long time of its history excluded from financial markets precisely because of these defaults. And just to give you a very small taste of that set of arguments that you've probably encountered very often, Roger Cohen, a famous op-ed writer for the New York Times, in one of his op-ed columns published in 2011, he writes precisely the same thing, that in fact, what is the history of the modern Greek state is a series of disasters, of epic disasters, and then he goes and names some of them. We're going to review them and try to make sense of them. So all of those descriptions of a permanently dysfunctional Greek state and a permanently dysfunctional Greek society, I think, raise a puzzle which needs to be at least addressed. And the puzzle is the following one. So on the one hand, we have this perception, which sounds very true, rings very true, of Greece as a perennial underachiever. But at the same time, when you look at where Greece is at this point in history, even after all these excruciating years of economic crisis, it really performs quite well when compared to the global average. It's one could say a top 40 nation in terms of GDP per capita, in terms of a variety of metrics about human development, about life expectation, about health, about the Economist had a very nice ranking of countries in which it is good to be born, and Greece was ranking quite high. So that raises a very interesting question, which is becomes even more interesting when you think that Greece actually outperforms countries that have had a much easier history than itself. And when you place Greece in its actual historical context, then you see this puzzle even growing. So the question is how to make sense of that puzzle, how to explain it, or if I want to put it a little bit more provocatively, how does Greece succeed by failing? Which I think would be a way to describe this puzzle. So what I'm going to do tonight is to reframe the big question about Greece's failures, and then try to go over Greece's record and provide you with my take of Greek history, my reinterpretation of Greek history, explaining this puzzle, and then concluding with a very brief review of of the title of my presentation, What is Greece? Or more precisely, what is Greece a case of? What does it represent if we place it on a global scale? And finally, I'm going to close with a few thoughts about the future, not trying to predict the future, but trying to see how the past may shed some light into the future. So let's start with the question, what is Greece? As I said, the different formulation to ask this question is to ask, what is Greece a case of? What does it represent? What does it stand for? And I think that allows us to answer it in a way that is perhaps more systematic and less metaphysical. So the question of what is Greece has motivated, as is natural, a lot of Greeks since the inception of the modern Greek state, but also it's a question that has stood at the center of a lot of the interpreters of Greece abroad, outside Greece. And I would argue it's a question with a particularly pronounced existential dimension, especially because of the legacy of Greece, the ancient legacy of Greece. And you can basically, if you read and sift through a lot of these observations, you can distinguish two different perspectives. One perspective emphasizes very much the legacy of Greece, sees Greece as a legacy. And the second one, which is the flip side of the first one, sees Greece as a phony, as an interloper. And I would argue that both of those views are in fact interchangeable, and very often the same people hold both views and change them depending on the circumstances. So the argument of Greece as a legacy is probably very well known to you. It emphasizes the fact that Greece is a placeholder for this famous and glorious ancient civilization that constituted, that connection of modern Greece to ancient Greece has been, I would argue, the cornerstone of Greece's identity and most Greeks' understanding of themselves. And it has been a very popular idea in the West from the very beginning. In fact, the idea of the connection between a modern Greek state and ancient Greece, in fact, originated very much in Western Europe, and in fact, through the Romantic movement in Germany during the early 19th century. However, it's ultimately, even though it's a very ambitious understanding of one's identity, it can also be quite self-defeating. In what ways? Well, you can never live up to this kind of comparison. Whenever you compare yourself to this glorious civilization, you are, in a sense, doomed to underperform. You cannot reach the level that this civilization reached, and therefore you are, in a sense, condemned to feel insecure in terms of your achievements. And that leads us to the second perspective, Greece as a phony, which is almost a natural follow-up of the first view. So if you start from the assumption that Greece is the direct descendant of this glorious civilization, and then you observe what you see, you notice a discrepancy between the modern and the ancient. And so the natural inclination for many observers of Greece, but also for many Greeks, is to say that there is something wrong, that it is not possible that the descendants of those famous ancient Greeks can be behaving so badly, and therefore they are not the real descendants. And this is a theme that you find throughout Greek history is very common. And so the argument here is that the modern Greeks are not the real Greeks, which makes the Greeks feel very bad and react very badly. And therefore, and an extension of that is an argument that we've seen emerge throughout the recent crisis, that the Greeks are not real Europeans, that they don't really belong to Greece, and Greece is in fact a country that has no place in Europe. So Greece as a phony is a very common position. In fact, one of the most, I would say, the closest friends of Greece, the former French president Valéry Giscard d'Estaing, gave an interview a few years back in which he precisely made this point. He said, Greece is an Oriental country. It should have never been part of Europe. And that's a person who, by any kind of standards, holds warm feelings towards Greece. So that's a very powerful kind of argument that is around. So that then becomes this sort of standard explanation for Greece's failures, that the country pretends to be something that it is not, and therefore fails because it is just not what it pretends to be. But I think it's not a sound way of thinking, and it leads us to very unproductive directions. Very often, for example, the Greeks have fought very hard in order to prove that they were the real descendants of the ancient Greeks, which is, I don't think, a very productive as I'm going to argue, direction of defense. So let's examine the record of Greece to try to at least see what are the facts when it comes to the question of Greece's underperformance and failure. When you look at the present crisis, what is striking is the fact that it is not the first one. And that is true for every country. All countries have gone through major crises in their history, and Greece is no exception to that respect. But then when you look more carefully, it very often seems that Greece tends to have a particular propensity to get embroiled in these big crises. So people have described Greece in those ways, as I said, as a perennial underachiever, a phony European, and a series of epic and endless disasters and calamities. And if you look just at the 20th century, it's very easy to generate a laundry list of those disasters. In fact, these were the standard types of arguments that you saw in most of the media describing or attempting to explain the causes behind the Greek crisis. 5 major wars in the 20th century, including a major civil war, brutal foreign occupation, massive population displacement in the 1920s, and afterwards several military coups, 2 major autocracies, several minor ones. So overall, when you look at this kind of laundry list, you reach an understanding of Greece as a dysfunctional and unstable country and society, prone to strife.
Αγαπητοί φίλοι τηλεθεατές, αυτά είχαμε για σας απόψε. Στο σημείο αυτό να σας υπενθυμίσουμε ότι μπορείτε να επικοινωνείτε μαζί μας τηλεφωνικά στο 020 82 92 70 37 ή μέσω της ηλεκτρονικής μας διεύθυνσης info@hellenictv.net. Επίσης, μην ξεχνάτε ότι πλέον μπορείτε να παρακολουθείτε στο κανάλι 244 στο Freeview εντελώς δωρεάν, διαδικτυακά αλλά και από το Roku Box της ΣΥΤΑ UK, όλες τις αγαπημένες σας ελληνικές και κυπριακές σειρές, τις τοπικές παραγωγές του σταθμού μας, δεκάδες ελληνικά κανάλια από Ελλάδα και Κύπρο, αλλά και πολλές κινηματογραφικές επιτυχίες. Το Hellenic TV πρωτοπορεί στην τεχνολογία και δημιουργεί το νέο application με την ονομασία Vision TV Net, όπου μπορείτε να μας παρακολουθείτε με όλες τις κινητές συσκευές σας iOS και Android σε ολόκληρο τον κόσμο. Πριν όμως αποχαιρετήσουμε, ας ρίξουμε μια γρήγορη ματιά στις εκδηλώσεις των ερχόμενων ημερών. Αύριο Σάββατο στις 27 Φεβρουαρίου θα γίνει η ετήσια χωροεσπερίδα του ανεξάρτητου ελληνικού σχολείου Manor Hill στο Royal National Hotel. Την ίδια μέρα θα γίνει παρουσίαση βιβλίου του Σάβα Λάμπρου στο Κυπριακό Κοινοτικό Κέντρο στο Wood Green. Στις 28 Φεβρουαρίου, Κυριακή, η εφημερίδα Παρικιακή παρουσιάζει τη γνωστή Ελληνίδα τραγουδίστρια Γλυκερία στο Regency Banqueting Suite. Την ίδια μέρα θα πραγματοποιηθεί το μνημόσυνο του ήρωα Γρηγόρη Αυξεντίου από τον Ελληνοκυπριακό Σύνδεσμο Εφέδρων Καταδρομέων Αγγλίας στην Εκκλησία των 12 Αποστόλων. Ο ομιλητής θα είναι ο Χαράλαμπος Καυκαρίδης, αναπληρωτής ύπατος αρμοστής της Κυπριακής Δημοκρατίας στο Λονδίνο. Εδώ θα θέλαμε να σας αναφέρουμε ότι ολόκληρη την λειτουργία, το μνημόσυνο αλλά και την ομιλία θα μεταδώσουμε ζωντανά από το κανάλι 244 στο Freeview, στο Hellenic TV1 και WNN, στο Roku Box της ΣΥΤΑ UK και διαδικτυακά σε ολόκληρο τον κόσμο. Εξάλλου στις 3 Μαρτίου θα πραγματοποιηθεί μεγάλη μουσική εκδήλωση που διοργανώνει η κοινότητα των 12 Αποστόλων με τίτλο «Η Μουσική Σχολή της Μύρνης και το Ρεμπέτικο». Το Σάββατο 12 Μαρτίου θα πραγματοποιηθεί η ετήσια χωροεσπερίδα της ΕΔΕΚ Ηνωμένου Βασιλείου, στην οποία θα παρευρεθεί ο πρόεδρος της ΕΔΕΚ, Δόκτωρ Μαρίνος Ιζόπουλος. Αμέσως μετά μην χάσετε την ταινία «Θανάσης σφίξε κι άλλο το ζωνάρι» και αμέσως μετά την ταινία «Γκίνες». Τα προγράμματα που μπορείτε να παρακολουθήσετε το Σαββατοκύριακο είναι: αύριο Σάββατο στις 7:30 την εκπομπή «Ανέσπερον Φως», που παρουσιάζει και επιμελείται ο πρεσβύτερος Σάββας Δαβίδ Βασιλιάδης. Αμέσως μετά στις 8 το βράδυ ακολουθεί η εκπομπή «Αύριο είναι Κυριακή», που επιμελείται και παρουσιάζει ο πρωτοπρεσβύτερος Ιωσήφ Παλιούρας. Στη συνέχεια στις 9 ακολουθεί η νέα μας εκπομπή «Sunny Properties», που παρουσιάζει μοναδικά ακίνητα της Μεγάλης Βρετανίας αλλά και του εξωτερικού που διατίθενται προς πώληση ή ενοικίαση. Μπείτε στο εσωτερικό υπερπολιτελών σπιτιών και περιηγηθείτε στις γύρω περιοχές του Λονδίνου και του εξωτερικού. Στην παρουσίαση η Σιβόν Μπέρμιχαν. Την Κυριακή στις 7:30 μην χάσετε την εκπομπή με τίτλο «Θέματα Υγείας», που επιμελείται και παρουσιάζει η γιατρός Κικής Ονίδου. Φιλοξενούμενος είναι ο οδοντίατρος Ανδρέας Λουλουδιάδης. Αμέσως μετά ακολουθεί η εκπομπή «Πρόσωπα» με τον Βασίλη Παναγή. Τη Δευτέρα μην χάσετε στις 8 το βράδυ την εκπομπή «Ανάδειξέ το» και στις 10 μην χάσετε την εκπομπή «Το ταξίδι της ζωής» με την Αγγίλου Πέσκου. Την Τρίτη στις 8 προβάλλεται η εκπομπή «Δράξαστε Παιδείας», που επιμελείται και παρουσιάζει ο πατέρας Ιωσήφ Παλιούρας. Την Τετάρτη παρακολουθήστε στις 8 την εκπομπή με το φακό του Hellenic TV, που θα σας παρουσιάσει την ετήσια χωροεσπερίδα του Δίκου Αγγλίας, που παρευρέθηκε ο πρόεδρος του κόμματος Νικόλας Παπαδόπουλος και τραγούδισε ο γνωστός Έλληνας τραγουδιστής Στέλιος Διονυσίου. Αμέσως μετά ακολουθεί η ταινία «Αν ήμουν πλούσιος» και ακολουθεί άλλη μια εκπομπή με το φακό του Hellenic TV, που θα σας παρουσιάσει τον εορτασμό των 3 νεαραχών από τα σχολεία της ΟΕΣΕΚ. Την Πέμπτη παρακολουθήστε το πολιτιστικό ημερολόγιο, μια εκπομπή με πολιτιστικό και ενημερωτικό χαρακτήρα που παρουσιάζει η Σουζάννα Καζάκα στις 8. Στο σημείο αυτό η εκπομπή Ομογένεια Εδω Λονδινο έφτασε στο τέλος της. Να ευχηθούμε σε όλους να έχετε ένα καλό βράδυ και θα είμαστε μαζί σας την ερχόμενη Παρασκευή στις 8 η ώρα για να σας παρουσιάσουμε όλες τις εκδηλώσεις της Ομογένειας. Καλό σας βράδυ και καλό Σαββατοκύριακο.